All right, hi everyone. Welcome to this very special edition, Believe in Bills, ahead of Sunday's matchup at Orchard Park with the Cincinnati Bengals. Adam Benini of WGRZ TV and Sports Talk Live Buffalo. Sal Majorana, Rochester Democrat and Chronicle. The usual cast. What's different this week is we have former NFL safety and kind of NFL broadcast extraordinaire Solomon Wilcots. Among the many things that he does is host the Believe in Bengals podcast here on this network to get us ready for this game on Sunday. Solomon, thanks for being with us. We appreciate the time.
Adam and Sal, hey, great to be on with you guys. Good to be talking some football, right?
And especially with things seeming to turn in a more positive direction Thanksgiving Day for the Cincinnati Bengals and the return of Joe Burrow. It seems obvious, but it begs the question, I mean, how much of a difference are we talking about where he steps back in and really hit the ground running? There wasn't a hell of a lot of rust that we saw from him.
He's the force multiplier, man. Think of the Buffalo Bills without Josh Allen. I know there was a time when he wasn't there and people longed for the next Jim Kelly, and Josh Allen comes along, and as much as we all love Jim, this guy is a dual threat guy. He does everything that the modern day quarterback is asked to do, and that's why he's an MVP. Well, think if you took him off that roster and where that would leave everyone else. Not only the production, but the inspiration that he provides and what he brings, the hope that he brings to not only the football team, but the franchise, the entire town. Well, that's what Joe Burrow is here in Cincinnati. He's an Ohio guy. This guy was Mr. Football in the state of Ohio when he played high school football. And boy, has he really earned everything that he has received in his career, except for the every other year injury that has seemed to be there within his career. Other than that, when he's on the field, he's wonderfully productive.
That's what I was gonna say. Is we've been in Buffalo very fortunate. Josh Allen's missed 4 games in his career. That was back in 2018. He hasn't missed a start since. It's got to be frustrating in Cincinnati because Burrow is so great. And I think the 2 healthy years were an AFC Championship game, and then they went to a Super Bowl the other year. And then last year, of course, they missed. So it's got to be frustrating to have had 3 seasons where you were sucked away from having Joe Burrow as your quarterback, right?
Yeah, it kind of lets the hot air out of the balloon. It really does. It's like a gut punch. Every one of us have had that feeling as a kid or whatever when you have the wind knocked out of you. You're trying to grasp for air and the lungs don't work and you feel like you're this close to dying, but no, there's air that rush in, and when you recover, you don't feel so great. That's kind of what it's like to lose him and not make the playoffs. But then there's hope for the next year. Look, the fact that he's back playing, guys, I could tell after missing the 9 games with this kind of injury, a grade 3 turf toe injury. This is the kind of injury that is into careers. That of the great Deion Sanders. Guys like Jack Lambert. And there's other players, right? Countless players before him that this injury would have ended their career. I think that it's great that he plays quarterback. If it was another position, defensive back or maybe receiver, he would not be able to play. He's playing with a sort of a steel sole in that shoe and not able to bend the toe. But, he can throw it and he can move well enough to be able to stay in position to throw the ball. But if it was another position, I don't think he would have been back so quickly.
His level of accuracy and timing and sense of the game and ability to read a defense has been compared to that of Tom Brady's.
Yeah.
Do you see it that way?
Yeah, I had the opportunity to cover Tom Brady and meet with him on multiple occasions in production meetings and share with him, Peyton Manning as well, who earned his degree in 3 years as an undergrad at the University of Tennessee, where he graduated with distinction. Joe Burrow did the same thing at The Ohio State University, earned his degree within a 3-year window. That's why even before the portal, he was able to transfer to LSU and play right away. And that tells you what you're working with here. He's brilliant. His mother worked in the education system. She was a teacher, became a principal. And as an only child within that family structure, you know what that's going to be like. You're around 2 adults every day, all day. One of them is a teacher, an educator. He's a reader. He's tremendous in science. And so, look, he's a diagnoser, right? He's reading defenses. The longer he's reading and getting a good feel for these defenses. It's like playing, remember a Rubik's Cube, he plays with it, he's fumbling around with it, and bam, he locks in. And when he does, I'm telling you now, it's not good for the opposing defense. And, that's who he is. That's what Tom Brady was. That's what Peyton Manning was. The real great ones as Vince Lombardi said, 90% of the game is played from the neck up. And this guy has that in spades. He really does.
That's actually exactly what Sean McDermott said today. He was asked about, what makes these quarterbacks great, and in particular on Burrow. I mean, Allen's got, Allen is also good at all that stuff too, but he's known for his just physical gifts that are just God-given. You just don't get that in many players. But McDermott specifically said on Burrow, what really sets him apart is exactly what you said. Yeah. He's a guy that he knows everything about that defense. You're never going to fool him. Yeah. And that's pretty amazing for a guy who's only been in the league 6 years, plus he hasn't played 6 full years. McDermott said this guy is top notch, and they're not going to be able to fool him. They're going to have to play better.
Good. Yeah. And, Sal, he's as good as they come in that area. He really, I've watched him, and here's the other thing, and I think it's the same with Josh. Maybe he doesn't get enough credit for his cerebral approach to the game because his physical skills are so good. But I put Josh in that category as well. I really do. But when it comes to Joe Burrow, I think his real true superpower and the brain, and I'm telling you now, the X's and O's, he's phenomenal. But his real true superpower, I'm telling you right now, without a man, every single guy who's played with him, been in that locker room, his second year, he comes right in after a season-ending injury as a rookie. Second year, takes his team to the Super Bowl. No one saw that coming now, but he did. This dude is the consummate competitor. I don't care how much money you give him. I don't care whatever you bestow, awards you give him. He's coming to beat you. That's why he's gone into Arrowhead Stadium and beat Patrick Mahomes twice. He's beaten Andy Reid. This guy, you talk to his teammates around, they'll tell you the words they use. He's a killer. He's got the baby face look to him, and he is a killer. He's coming to win. And it's like a Michael Jordan. He's coming to destroy you. That's who he is. But in our game, you can't do that by yourself, right? At quarterback, right. It doesn't work that way. This is the consummate team game, and he is trying tooth and nail to drag the other 52 guys with him. He really is.
Well, we saw it in the playoff game here in the 22 season. He came in there. Nobody really gave the Bengals much of a chance to beat the Bills in Buffalo on a snowy day. They kicked the shit out of them. It wasn't even a game. And Burrow was great that day. He outplayed Allen, and they were great. So we've seen him do that. Now, what I want to ask you about this Cincinnati team, they're coming in here 4-8. Solomon, and I guarantee you this is one of the last teams the Bills want to be playing right now. It's always about not who you play, it's when you play them. Yeah. They are getting the Bengals at the worst possible time. Am I not right about that?
No, I think you're right. Because they know who Burrow is. They felt the pain and the sting of what he represents, or what a guy like Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Those guys. I think these organizations are some way linked, particularly with what happened on that Monday night game with Damar Hamlin, his story, and the way Brandon Beane was so wonderful. And, he stayed here in town. I remember interviewing him and talking with him. The guy was wearing the same shirt for 3-4 days. No one can say he doesn't care about his players. And that whole experience, the way that the city and Bills Mafia poured out their hearts, even going back to Andy Dalton, right? When he beat the Baltimore Ravens, the Bills get into the playoffs in those early years, right? Under Sean McDermott. It's just I think they're kind of tied at the hip. There's a great respect. I think the Bengals are saying, the Bills, this is the worst team to face right now. That's what they're saying on the other side, because they know their run defense has not been stellar. And you're coming off a game where you rushed for 249 yards in Pittsburgh, by the way. That resonates with Cincinnati Bengals players and Cincinnati Bengals fans who have to go up against that team twice a year, every year, and know what it means to go into Pittsburgh and win a physical battle like that. So they know that they're going to be facing a formidable team led by a league MVP.
All right, and getting back to Burrow just for a second, and Sal properly referenced. I mean, we were both in Cincinnati that night with DeMar, and it's a night obviously we'll never forget. And thankfully, the way it all resolved and the outpouring of support from both communities is something I'll take with me. I know for forever in terms of experiences that I've had in my decades of working in journalism. But as far as the football goes, that the playoff game that Sal referenced, I mean, depleted offensive line that night, winter conditions, the receivers were just a nightmarish matchup for the Buffalo secondary. So from a health perspective, injury report heading into this one, who is Burrow going to have in terms of weapons? What's the latest on all of that?
T. Higgins was limited in practice on Wednesday. They feel really good about the other receivers, though. Andre Yoshivas is a phenomenal player, by the way. I think this guy is, he could hurt you. The Mitchell Tinsley kid is phenomenal. Joe Burrow has tremendous confidence in him. They believe they have 3 tight ends, and we know Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox, and Jackson Hall. I love that trio of tight ends better than I probably like any other 3 tight ends. But Mike Gesicki and Tanner Hudson, they've all been good. This group has been phenomenal. And then Noah Fant has come in out of nowhere and been very good for this football team. And Joe likes getting the ball to the tight ends. That's what really opens things up for their wide receivers. And Chase Brown out of the backfield, he's no James Cook, but he's trending in that direction. He's a younger player.
He's been great lately.
He's been great really lately. Good. 6 straight games with over 100 yards from scrimmage. So that's the James Cook kind of category. These 2 teams are mirror images of each other. Great quarterback, good sort of surrounding cast around them, and really good coaching, right? And, think about it. The Bengals have, under their head coach, Zach Taylor, they've scored, guys, 30 points or more in 13 games since the start of last season. And you're talking about a team that didn't even make the playoffs. Last year, they did it 8 times and went 4-4 in those games. This year, they've done it 5 times and they're 3-2 in those games. They've scored 40 points in the game this year and lost. So think about the offense, the capabilities they have, but still understanding. I think they have a sense of urgency every time they get the ball that they have to score, because they don't know how it's going to turn out if they don't.
Right.
Solomon, I'll tell you what, the Jets game and the Bears game, you have got to be banging your head against the wall that they lost those 2. I mean, that's just unbelievable that they lost those 2 games. They had them both in the bag and somehow let them out. Think about it. If you turn those 2 results around, you're in first place in the AFC North.
And they, that's the frustration, I think, with the team. Chase Brown is a young guy, but he's such a competitor. He finally said something.
I saw that. I saw his quote.
And here's why I didn't take umbrage with it, because he didn't point anyone out. He just when to close out the game. That's what he said. He said he was talking about the mentality. He didn't name a player. He didn't even say defense. He just said because they asked what needs to be done. He said you got to close out the game, and he was really angry about it. The coach called him in. I hope he explained it the way that I saw it anyway, that somebody's got to get pissed off. This keeps happening around here. And to me, I think you guys know this. Coaches have all the power, no control. It's the players who got to go out and do something about it, right? The players who have to execute. It's the players who have to make plays. Coaches haven't made 1 tackle yet. They can't. The players have to take ownership for their team. And here's a young guy saying what a lot of older guys should be saying. You guys know those old Bills with, some of the great players they've had. There would have been a fight in the locker room, man. But it would have got fixed. It's getting fixed. I don't care if some feelings are going to get hurt, but it's going to get fixed. We ain't leaving here until we address the issue.
That was Daryl Talley. That was Daryl Talley.
That was.
That's exactly what Talley would have said back in the day. What Chase Brown said that day.
That's right. But it's got to be done. It's got to be said. And look, Zach Taylor's a really good coach. I respect him. I get it. But sometimes you got to let players handle their domain. That locker room, that's their domain. That's their team. Every coach I know eventually tells the players, somebody got to take ownership of this. It's your team. When are we going to start getting some leadership and some ownership for what's taking place here? And those teams are elevated at critical moments in the season, particularly as you get in December and into the postseason. You want player-led teams.
Well, to the point you just made, Solomon, and we had Andre Reed on last week in the run-up to the Pittsburgh game, Hall of Famer, and part of exactly what you just described. And among the things he said to us, he called him out. He's talked with Keon Coleman a lot and tried to mentor him, tried to bring him along. But as for the team itself, coming off the loss in Houston, right? He was like, back in the day, he described exactly what you just did about the Bills, the early 90s Bills that started out as the bickering Bills, right? That was there. But look what it led them to. And he said, on this team now, presently, you need 5 guys to step up that won't take any what. That was his exact quote.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
And he hadn't seen that yet. Now they go into Pittsburgh and win, overpower them physically the way they did.
Yeah.
Right? In historic fashion with the number of rushing yards and everything else. So it seems as if on both sides of the ball, they're down there 2 tackles in that game offensively. So it seems as if they sort of found something, that identity, that edge, right? Heading down the stretch. And fighting for playoff position.
I think that was a seminal moment, guys. I really do. Ask the Colts what happened when they went in there with their high-flying offense, right? 6 turnovers. It was a long day. Jonathan Taylor didn't do much, I think he gained 48 yards, by far his lowest rushing total of any game this season. So that we know what Pittsburgh can do, but you guys did the other thing. You ran on them like I'm sure Jonathan Taylor's like, they did what? I mean, that caught a lot of our attention around the National Football League, because you just don't do that to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like, you don't go and beat them in a physical match in their home stadium in front of those fans, and you turn their own crowd on them. I mean, that's a historic moment. I think that's going to be one of those great games. You guys know this as well as I do. I think Buffalo fans, Bills fans are going to be talking about that game for decades. Trust me. Remember that time we went into Pittsburgh and we beat the Steelers at their own game? We out physical the Steelers, because that doesn't happen every day, guys. It just doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
Well, you know what? Since we're right there, because I think it's going to be one of the key parts of this game, because Buffalo, Solomon, it's hard to believe with Josh Allen, this team has 0 downfield passing game. They just can't throw the ball downfield. So they're going to have to run. Tell us about Cincinnati's defense, which I know was historically bad for about 10 weeks, but has been much better lately. Why? Why has their defense all of a sudden been pretty good the last 3 weeks?
They're doing better on their fits on the interior portion. Not as much running and getting upfield, trying to chase the quarterback, being a little bit smarter. They do have a lot of young players on their defense. I find it ironic that you're not going to get, potentially Joey Bosa won't be able to play, but Trey Hendrickson's not going to be able to play. It's like both teams are without their best pass rushers that could do the most damage. So let's see how the other guys participate. And look, Joseph Osai has been really good, and Miles Murphy now starting to make plays. You have high draft picks like the interior defensive lineman Chris Jenkins, who's starting to be become a pro at what he's doing. The same, they're young at linebacker. They're young in the secondary. A lot of high draft picks back there, and DJ Turner, Cam Taylor-Britt, Dax Hill, and Jordan Battle. And now they're starting to settle in. Still, for this town, they're not tackling well enough on defense. And that's why the great concern after seeing 249 yards put up on the Pittsburgh Steelers defense by, the likes of James Cook and Ray Davis. I think there's a concern that it could happen again against the Bengals defense that have not been the best tacklers. They had 5 takeaways on Thanksgiving evening against Baltimore, and that weighed heavily in them being able to get enough stops to limit the explosive talents of Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson.
All right. So, I mean, you might as well in a lot of ways just describe Buffalo's defense.
Yeah.
Right? Very susceptible to the run, all of those things. What's your read on that? As far as the Bengals offense, what will be their ability to maybe keep pace on the scoreboard in this game, matching up specifically with that defense from where you sit?
Look, I I like Buffalo. I like their secondary. I think Harrison's going to be a real good player. I think a lot of those guys, you got some young players who are factoring into some young safeties who are starting to really come on and beginning to make plays. It's just that it's been an up and down thing. You guys know it better than I do. One week it looks really good. Next week you're like, what happened? But even in the Texans game, I thought the defense did not perform well. You guys were still in that game right up to the very end. And so I just think they're starting to come into their own as well. Now, going to be severely tested. You get a Jamar Chase and a T. Higgins on the field at the same time.
Sure.
Joe Burrow, who, look, man, these guys are as good as they come. Let's be honest. And I'm saying that not because I'm a former Bengal, just you guys know that Jamar Chase is phenomenal. He's a competitor. T. Higgins is as good as any wide receiver. His pass catching radius and his ability to make plays in the clutch are phenomenal. So, I think they can. I think this could end up being a shootout. I think both defenses could end up having a problem, to be honest with you. And I think if the Bills are scoring a lot of points, that would be a coming out party because they've been dormant for a while. So I think it favors the Bills, and it's just being pure analytical here. If they could manufacture 30 plus points, that's to their favor. I wonder if they can keep up. I do believe the Bengals will get their points. If it's not wet, even if it's cold, but if it's not wet, I think the Bengals will be able to score. And I mean, Joe Burrow, I'm telling you guys, he's hard to keep down. But I do think it's going to be a high scoring game. I think both defenses are going to find it tough to get off the field against the opposing quarterback.
Solomon, I think the last thing the Bills want to do is get in a shootout with this team because they can't. I don't think the Bills can do it because they can't throw the ball effectively. They want to play the same way they played against Pittsburgh. They had the ball 42 minutes last week. They're going to try to run the ball and keep Burrow off the. And we say that about a lot of games. You keep the other offense. Yeah. But this offense in particular, they don't want to get in a shootout with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase. I
agree with that.
Maybe T. Higgins. I think the Bills want to shorten this game.
That's why I said if they're scoring a lot of points, they win. I just really believe that.
You're right.
When Josh is cooking, I mean, guys, remember, why are we saying these things about the Bills? I mean, I don't get it. I watch them play. I know what's happened. The wide receivers are not winning on the perimeter. Brandon Cooks now had to come in. Hopefully they can get him going, at least create a few big plays down the field because they are not producing the explosive pass plays. But that ain't the conversation we were having after the first two games of the season, right? Yeah. I mean, think about, these are the same players at the early part of the season. I mean, they were cooking. I mean, and so for me, I mean, those are the same guys that I'm seeing now. But as you well know, I mean, Palmer, I think he's the guy that if he didn't get hurt, he would still be producing like he was at the beginning of the year because I really like him. I remember him with the Chargers. Yeah. I know he played well in the first couple of weeks that he played until he got hurt. But I do remember this offense putting up huge numbers the first couple of weeks in the season.
Here's the thing, Solomon, and we've pointed this out numerous times lately. Mm-hmm. They got off to a good start. Now, they played 3 lousy teams in those first 4 games, but that aside, it's still the NFL. The problem with this offense, Solomon, is they have become very stagnant and predictable. I mean, Joe Brady, I think he's a good play caller, but I think their passing game, they do the same things every game. They try to run those quick bubble screens. Everything is quick because they're not throwing the ball downfield. And I think defenses now, the second half of the season for sure, defenses know what the Bills are going to do. And, the Steelers couldn't stop the run, but most teams are stopping their passing game because, like you said, they're not winning on the perimeter, but they know what the Bills are going to do when they throw the ball. I don't know if you see that when you watch film of it, but they look very predictable to me.
And that, guys, if you hear this, you hear coaches talk about it, you hear the announcers, don't try to put a square peg in a round hole. Mm-hmm. If your receivers aren't of the high football IQ, if they can't do a lot of the things that Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis did when the quarterback was young and the receivers had the experience. Now you have the quarterback with the experience and you have receivers who have not adjusted. Khalil Shakir, I think, is a guy that certainly could do it. He's playing in the slot. But you need all those other elements. That's why they call it route combinations. The routes work with other routes. So if one guy doesn't do it or read out the coverage the right way and doesn't run his route the right way, a lot of routes are determined post-snap. As the defenses are sort of rotating in their looks, the receivers have to read it summarily with the quarterback and say, oh, they're dropping down into the box. This looks like single high 3. I'm going to convert my route. Veteran guys can do that. Younger guys struggle with that. So you know what happens? Coaches say, let's make it simple. Sometimes you make it so simple, you're doing nothing. Then the defense is locking in on you. That's not a product of poor coaching. That's a product of the players being young, not developing and growing from the neck up, right? Which I think is why they had to sit Keon Coleman down a little bit, right? Because they're wanting it to elevate. And then they had to go out and go bring back Gabe Davis. Okay, let's go. You could tell by the moves they're making what the problems are, at least how they're trying to address it. It informs us to what has been taking place, at least in that area.
Yeah, certainly does. So it makes for a very interesting matchup, as we've outlined here. Bills favored by 6 at this point at home. That's the last line I saw. And FanDuel, the presenting.
Crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah.
The Bills see the over by 6 is crazy.
Yeah. But Bengals they'll give you at least one touchdown. So that's probably what they're thinking.
FanDuel, presenting sponsor for this show, for your show, Solomon, and others on the Believe Network, has the Bengals at plus 850 at this point to make the playoffs. And the Bills are now 5th in the Super Bowl, rankings at plus 1,100. So they're back up a couple of spots after the win at Pittsburgh. But, I mean, the number that kind of sticks with me is when Joe Burrow is the quarterback, dating back to last season, 8 straight wins for Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Hey, man, let me tell you something now. The way he finished off last year, I thought he was playing better than any quarterback in the league. And that's with all due respect to Josh Allen, who won the MVP. I think if, the making it into the playoffs, I thought was a sort of that tipping point. Your MVP performance should lead to winning results, right? And so I think that the award went to the right person in Josh Allen, but there was no quarterback playing better than Joe Burrow, and they finished off the season winning 5 straight. And now that's what they need to do as they head into Buffalo. And who can put an end to that? Josh Allen and the Bills. Because if the Bengals can't win this game, it doesn't matter. If you don't get to 9, right, you got no shot. I think 9 could end up being too little. 10 is the number in the AFC. But if they can't get to 9, I think it's over. And that would start by them winning in Buffalo and winning each of their last 5 games, something that Joe Burrow was able to help the Bengals do 1 year ago to close out the regular season. Now let's see if they could do it again. All
right. Going to be very interesting. Solomon, we really appreciate your time.
All right. You guys keep up the good work. Thanks for having me. Appreciate you.
All right. Solomon Wilcots, Believe in Bengals, Sal Mayorana, Rochester Democrat, and Chronicle. I'm Adam Benini of WGRZ TV and Sports Talk Live Buffalo. Thanks for being with us here on Believe in Bills, presented by FanDuel.